This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Now, if you cast your mind back to episode 20, you might remember that I began there a little tradition of having a special episode on these kind of big number episodes. And it's something that's really fun for me because I get to pull together some seemingly pretty random travel tales that have particularly fascinated me, and I really want to share them. They may not exactly hang together, but I found a way to combine these stories today, and it's a bit of an unusual little thing, but I noticed that all of these stories I wanted to share have something in common. They're all about something that has 4 letters and starts with L. Different ones, but it works. So today's episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast is called Lace, Lego, and Lola on Travel. So you'll just have to wait and see exactly what those 3 things, I can't even count, are all about. While we're talking about being episode 30, another sort of special episode, that's a kind of a cue for me to ask a special favour from you all. If you haven't left a review on iTunes for the Thoughtful Travel Podcast, I would dearly love you to do so. I'll leave a link in the show notes to make it one step easier, but those reviews and ratings really help other people to find the Thoughtful Travel Podcast, and they completely make my day, or who am I kidding, my week, every time I get to read one and I think, oh, wow, are they really talking about me and my little podcast? Because it's really exciting to hear people listening to it all around the world and getting something out of it, because I get so much out of creating it as well. So thanks in advance for giving my blog a 30th episode present. Sorry, not my blog, my podcast, giving it a 30th episode present with a lovely review on iTunes. I will really love you forever. So let's get on to Lace, Lego, and Lola on Travel. It sounds interesting, doesn't it? It does to me. So lace is the first topic. We're going to go deeper into a story that I started back in episode 26 with photographer Martin Bailey. He began the story then of how he became bilingual. It was the episode about how to be bilingual when he moved to Japan to work in a lace factory. Now, I am fairly sure that most of you will not know anybody who has moved to Japan to work in a lace factory. I think it's a pretty unique story. But this sort of fairly random decision that Martin made to travel to Japan completely changed his life. And it's 25 years ago, and he now does live in Japan full-time and has done for many years, all because of this lace factory. So I was quite impressed by his tale, and I wanted to share some more about how Martin had spent his time while he was working in the lace factory and where his travels and career went from there. In this job that you first had in the lace factory, were there other expats there, or were there mostly Japanese employees, or what was going on there?
There was because what happened was the factory needed some. They were building a new factory in China, like a lot of companies have done. They were trying to get the cheaper labor in China, and so they'd built a factory over there, and they were going to wind down their Japan company factories, but they had a lot of orders come in that they couldn't fulfill. And because it's a trade that does take a couple of years to learn, to learn to do it well, you need 3 to 4 years in the trade. And so they needed people that could come in and run the machines straight away. And the first thing I did, all of these lace machines, they have where they were made and the year they were made in the wrought iron frame. And the first thing I did when I was shown where my machine was I jumped up on there's like a big an axle that runs down the middle. I jumped up on that, and it said Nottingham. I think it was 1901 or something like that. So it was the machine that I was going to be running had come from the same place as me, and it was 100 years older.
That's fabulous.
So it was, so they hired us, and it was only going to be a 6-month contract initially. So I thought, it'll be a good chance to get a a bit of an introduction to the language. But luckily for us, the China factory couldn't get off the ground properly because the standards of it's a very precision trade. And if there's a few thou out, like fractions of a millimeter out, things just don't work.
Right.
And so they couldn't get the factory going. So I ended up doing this job for 4 years. And that's how I was able to spend the time here and learn the language. But then, so the question was about other expats. So yes, there was me. Initially, there was me and 3 others. And then they brought 2 more guys over for another 3 years or so. So there was other expats here. The difference was that the company that I was working for, they put in, there's a TV cable service called Wow Wow that had just started here, and they had some English movies and things on there. And the first thing I did was I had them take it out of my room.
Oh, you're so wise.
And I said, if that's there, I'll lean on it. It'll be one of those crutches to lean on. And I had them take it out. And I just made sure that whenever I could, I watched only Japanese TV. I would make notes. If I could understand part of a sentence but not others, I'd make notes and look it up in the dictionary. There was all sorts of things that I did that I just separated myself from the others just by those sort of things, forcing English out of my... Obviously, we'd still converse in English, but I had friends here that I learned Japanese quickly enough that over the following few months, I was able to converse sort of, not great, but enough to have a conversation. And so I just immersed myself in it. And at the end of that time, the others, none of them really learned to speak any more than a few words. One guy had all of the dirty Japanese down. He could talk dirty in Japanese, as much as you want. But
that's it.
I mean, for the others, a lot of them didn't really learn it, and they didn't really want to. They were just there for the money, and they left. So, it's not a big deal for those. But I didn't want to leave, so I put myself through college. When I'd finished, I stayed here, put myself through college. Did go back to England for a few years until I think it was from 97 to 2000. But then I got a job working in Tokyo, and did that for 10 years. And then 6 years ago, I'd already started to build my photography business along the way. And so now for the last 6 years, my photography has been my own, that's all I do. So
wow.
tours and photography and stuff.
That's fabulous. What a great life story to have had all these varied experiences. I mean, I know a few people who've been to live in Japan, but I think every single one of us went to teach English, very cliched kind of existence. Yeah. But to go to make lace and then manage to find ways to stay on, that's pretty cool.
Well, obviously in Japan, the R is between L and R.
Yes.
And so the first thing that people would say to me is, "Are you American?" I'd say no. And then the second thing they'd say is, "Do you teach English?" And I'd say no. They'd say, "Well, what do you do then?" I say, "I'm in lace." Oh. And they'd say, "What, you mean like F1 lacing?" And I'd say, no, lace as in the stuff that you put on underwear and stuff like that. And, oh, I see what you mean, because they couldn't figure it out.
That is unfortunate. Base. Yes, it doesn't. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, well, it's certainly unique. So,
it's been a fun journey.
So I'm really very sure that when Martin headed off to Japan to work in this lace factory, he really had not a clue at all where that step would take him. Now he lives in Japan full time, but as a photographer and someone who takes photography trips around the world, he gets to visit some amazing places. I think in the last year or so, and in the next few months, he'll have been to Iceland, Greenland, Namibia, and all over Japan, taking trips with people who want to learn more about photography and for his own travels. And those kind of places are just places I dream of returning to in some cases and going to for the first time. So all of that came out of that lace factory job. You just never know, do you? Anyway, so Martin had an interesting story of how he came to be a real traveller, but my next guest has an interesting story about what he decided to do once he was already travelling. It was actually my son, my 6-year-old, who asked me to get Tom Parsons on the show. And this section of our chat is the one that my son was desperate to hear about. So rather than lace, this time we're talking about another 4-letter L word. This one is Lego.
With the Lego backpacker, so when I started traveling in August last year, I wanted to do something. I'm not the strongest writer, like blogger or anything like that, but I'm a very visual person. So I wanted to take photos of the places that I go and everything, and I wanted to do something a little bit different, as well as to kind of post it online, just so my family and friends could see where I was going. And I really, really do not like selfies, so I wanted to do something different. And I know that it's not the newest thing. I mean, I've seen people take photos of Lego pieces in different, or toys in different places that they go. It's like a kind of little mascot and everything. So I decided when I started traveling, I was traveling with my ex-partner, and she was doing a blog, and I thought I'd like to do something as well. And I always loved Lego. So I thought, well, after discussing and seeing photos and things, I was like, well, I'm going to do a Lego backpacker. So decided to start taking photos of the little Lego man at different places. And I'm fortunate with my design background. I'm quite comfortable with taking different perspectives and working on the photos, so that I could take a photo of the little man in front of key landmarks or key areas and stuff, and making it so it's clear, so that you could see where I was going and what I was doing. And then it kind of just developed from there, and it got a little bit of addictive, to tell you the truth, to try and get the best shot to show people, as well as what makes me really happy is actually knowing that a lot of kids, I mean, I get a large number of kids that follow me on Instagram as well, to see what amazing places there are to go and everything. So I like to put the little Lego man in there and take the shot, maybe make a small story or something, or try and find some important facts about the location that I am in, or the country that I'm in, so that I can easily post it on Instagram and on Facebook and things like that, as well as knowing that I've got a bit of a scrapbook at the end of it. So, and it kind of just escalated from there, and it's been quite fun. And then just more and more people followed me, and then a few people online decided to share my story. So,
that's excellent.
I just have great fun with it, and it also kind of keeps my mind in quite a creative mode of what I can do on each photo to make it more entertaining for different people. So, some of the photos I've got outside St. Basil's, obviously standing there taking a photo of St. Basil's because it's absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
When I was in China, I was in Tianmen Mountain, which is huge, beautiful, drastic landscapes and everything, as well as some of the craziest roads that I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
So there's a photo of the Lego backpacker with an absolutely terrified face looking at this road that's going absolutely windy. And 10 minutes later, I'm on a bus that's doing 60 kilometers per hour, screaming down this road, doing constant not handbrake, but hammerhead turns.
Oh, scary.
So, and it's great fun because I mean, those are it's funny because I look at some of the photos that some people will be like, that's a nice photo, but I look at it and it reminds me at the same time of what happened during that experience. So when I see like the scary face, I know how much I love it, or seeing him in his board shorts at the beach and stuff like that, of remembering how warm it was or how clear the water was. And so it kind of escalated from there. And then I got more and more comments and things, and I decided that I should start putting, I call them brick facts, so small facts about the area and stuff, just so that it educates me of what's happening what the story is in that area, or what's happening in that area, but also for other people to see, and so they get interested in it as well. So, it's good fun.
That's perfect. Now, I do have one question that hasn't been answered yet that my 6-year-old asked me, because he's a little bit Lego obsessive, and he makes like stop motion animations with his Lego and all kinds of stuff. He's really, it's his thing.
Yep.
And so his question was, how do you make the minifigures look the same scale as the place they're in? So right. Explain it for a 6-year-old.
I've been asked this question a few times, and I've never lied about it, or I've never told anyone different. So with most cameras, and you're taking a photo of a scene or a scenario, it's there's usually one main focal point, and then everything else goes out of focus around it. So when I first started taking the photos, I tried doing it, and the Lego man would be very blurred, and the background shot would be clear, or reverse that. So I was fortunate that I take everywhere I go. I actually take 2 photos in location. So every photo I've taken are my own, and I've always been on location. So I'll take a photo of the Lego man in his position in front of the landmark, focused on the Lego man.
Yep.
And then I'll take him away and then take another photo with it focused on the background shot, so the landmark or the cathedral or whatever. And then some cameras you can do it. You can join the 2 photos together and it will do the cutout automatically.
Right.
But pretty much I'll put it into, I've got an app on my tablet, and then I put the 2 photos together and cut out round the little Lego man.
Got it.
So, and make it blend as well together as possible. So I've been asked quite a few times on my Instagram account, how do you do it? Because a lot of people try and do it, and obviously they're using usually their phones, their smartphone or phone and everything. And unless you've got a particular app for your phone, I don't know if I've searched. I don't know of any that do it, but that's the best way I've found to do it.
That's excellent. Very clever.
Yeah, so it's clear, and I'm as I said, with my design background, I'm very comfortable with those programs. So each photo takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to do. It's not as easy as just put the Lego man down, take a shot, and then walk away. So I take 2 shots, and which makes it quite a bit more entertaining, because a lot of people will see me taking the photo in different locations, and they'll be wondering what I'm doing, or they'll laugh about it and stuff. And I've got to the point that I just do it, and I don't really mind. So so the only way with 2 focal points of a short distance and long distance was to do that.
Great idea.
So if any of your listeners have found any other way, I'd love to hear it. But,
tell us. Cool. All right, well, I will let my 6-year-old know about that, and I know that he will then be wanting to try that, so thanks for that. So I've kept this part of my conversation with Tom, the Lego backpacker, a secret until now, but no doubt my Mr. 6 will have been listening to this over breakfast on the Tuesday it comes out, and now we will have to try Tom's method for ourselves, I am sure, which may stretch my technical skills a little, but I will give it a go. So think of me. I really love that that Tom has had hit on this way to keep a record of his travels and to share it with other people. I like the fact that it's interesting and educational for the people who follow him, but I especially like that he puts the thought into it to kind of make it like a scrapbook or diary of his own travels by picking the expression on the Lego minifigure's face to match the feelings that he had in that place. I think it's a really novel way to approach creating travel memories. It inspires me to wonder what my son and I could do in the future. He'll probably want to take little Lego men around the world with him too. And I shouldn't have said that because he'll be listening. Oh, well, it's one of the smaller things you could take around the world, so I guess I can't complain. Anyway, now, as I mentioned, the only thread I can draw between these particular snippets of my favourite travel tales and interviews is that they're about 4-letter words starting with L, and the next 4-letter word is actually the name of my lovely next guest, Lola. Now, I could listen to Lola's thoughts and travel tales forever because she's got so many interesting tales to tell. So in this part of our chat, we were talking about moving abroad and how traveling and moving to other countries can just change your life in so many different ways. And it really got me thinking about transitions between cultures and the curiosity that all good travellers have. It's the reason why we want to travel more and more. But I mean, you are the poster child for this, taking the leap to move to Sweden and giving up your well-paid career. Weren't you terrified?
I was, but my life has always been about transitions anyway. I mean, I grew up in Nigeria.
True.
And when I was done with high school, I finished really early at 15. Mm-hmm. So I moved to the US to go start college.
Oh, at 15?
At 15. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's so young.
Yeah, so I was just at the turning 16.
Mm-hmm.
Started college from when I was done at 19.
Right.
I got my first full-time job as a programmer. So all my 20s, I wish I was partying like crazy. Because I'm like, crap, I lost that era right
You
there.
can't
But
get that back.
no. But from a very young age, I'd always been kind of in a business mindset, and I worked as a consultant from a really early age. And so I worked in that world until, I met my husband, I transitioned, but I'd always loved travel writing and photography on the side. So I started doing that on the side. And I think when I met you so many years ago, kind of online, I was still a programmer at that time. I was doing all the stuff on the side. So transitions are never easy, even though I've gone through a bunch myself, but especially coming into a place that's so culturally different from Nigeria and the US. And then trying to build from scratch. It wasn't easy, but I also am a naturally curious person. And that's a point I also make is if you're a traveler, chances are you're a traveler because you're a curious person. You want to learn about the world, see other cultures, experience all that, right?
Yes.
Do you become less curious because you have to sit at home for a month?
No, more curious.
Exactly. But if you become less curious, then that means you actually have to reassess your motives for travel.
Fair enough.
That means you're probably traveling because you just want to show other people or show off or just come back with selfies or say, see. Because if you become less curious because you just have to not travel for a month, then you have to really reassess your motives for travel. So many life transitions, but like I said, those life transitions bring out your strengths based on how you react to them. So based on all these different ways I've reacted to all these transitions in my life, I begin to know what my strengths and my weaknesses are. So they help you as a person grow and develop.
And they help you to follow your passions and really live a life that's fulfilling.
Exactly.
Always so much to think about when I chat with Lola. But in this particular chat, I especially like her thoughts about how people who really, really love travelling are just naturally curious and they really feel an urgent need to keep travelling and to keep discovering new things, whether that be by travelling to, far off places and extremely different cultures, or even just being very curious about your own backyard. I think it doesn't matter where you go, but if you're always looking to learn new things, to meet new people, to discover how other people live, then I think that is like the real traveller's curiosity. And I know that's how I feel. And some people might consider me even nosy, but I like to name it curiosity instead. It's definitely a family trait that's been passed down from generation to generation. And my son has it even worse than me. But, in the end, I think it's a good thing. Or at least just let me think that. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening to episode 30 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. It's been a pleasure to be able to bring you some of my favourite little snippets of interviews with some of our previous guests. Let me tell you a little bit about them so you can go off and find out some more online. First up, we had Martin Bailey, the photographer. And I do encourage you to go and have a look at his website or even listen to his podcast as well. He's got some great photos up from his recent trip to Greenland, which is a place I would dearly love to go. And seeing his photos coming through my stream has just made that desire even stronger. So you can have a look at his work at martinbaileyphotography.com and add /workshops on the end of that if you're curious about joining him on one of his workshops. I think that would be an amazing trip. After Martin, I spoke with Tom Parsons of the Lego Backpacker. Best place to have a look at Tom's work is on Instagram, and he is the Lego Backpacker on Instagram. He's also had, as he mentioned in that chat, a few compilations of his images published on some websites around the world. I'll put a link in the show notes to one from the Bored Panda website, which was just a really lovely collection. Some of his photos just really make me smile. And last but very, very far from least, Lola is found at Geo Traveller's Niche, and you can find her website at lolaakenmaid.com, and I will leave a link in the show notes to that as well. Thanks very much for listening to my compilation episode for number 30. Don't forget to give my podcast a little 30th episode present by leaving a review and really exciting me by letting me read something, some feedback. It's always exciting to hear from listeners. Thanks so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.
Jackrabbit FM. For your ears.
Who is that? Hi, podcast.